Please off your video and audio, please. Will you please? Okay. Okay. Good morning, Ashin.
മോർണിംഗ് കേൾക്കാമോ?
കേൾക്കാം. Vineet sir, can you off your video, please? Audio and video. Vineet sir, sir, please can you off your video?
ഞാനൊന്ന് ഒരു ഓഡിയോ ടെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്തോട്ടെ, ഒരു വീഡിയോ പ്ലേ ചെയ്യാൻ പോവാണ്. കിട്ടും.
Okay, okay. Fine. You can play. Ashin, can we start? Can we start the session now?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Let me know when I can start.
So there will be an introduction speech by Blissy Miss, our HOD.
Right now.
Good morning, all. It is a moment of great pleasure and proud for me as our department is conducting a webinar on the career opportunity in data science. We can proudly say that it is the first attempt from our college to conduct a webinar with participants from Kerala and out of the states. I welcome you all to this section. Our dear principal, Mr. P.P. Gangadharan Nair, is there to support and guide us in all aspects. In his absence, I welcome him to this session. I am honored to present before you our today's speaker, Mr. Ashin, data scientist. On graduating from engineering college, he joined the fastest growing unicorn, New Sigma Business Solution, as a data scientist and grew into the role of managing multiple engagements for many of the Fortune 140 constituencies. He has a Toastmaker for over 7 years, founded two Toastmaker clubs. He has mentored over 100 Toastmakers globally. He set out on a soul-searching journey in 2019, which landed him at Isha Yoga Center, Coimbatore, as a volunteer for a 7-month residential program involving 800 participants over 32 different countries. On behalf of the department and the St. Kyriakos family, I welcome Mr. Ashin Paul to this session. It is my pleasure to welcome all the participants who received our invitation and took initiative to participate in this session on time. I welcome all of you. We have our coordinator, Assistant Professor Gitu Joy, who spent a lot of time and effort to arrange this session. Along with Mrs. Gitu Joy, I welcome all my dear colleagues and students to this session. I hope that the session will be really benefit you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Flessy, for those wonderful words.
Okay, thank you, Ashin. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure to be with you all today. I think this is one of the first sessions that I'm doing in my own native. I see about 90 folks and folks still joining the call. So it's such a pleasure to be with you all this Tuesday morning to do this session. To be honest, I've been working as a data scientist, like you said, for about over 5 years now. And it's always a pleasure for me to speak to the youngsters and especially people who are wanting to know a little bit about this field. The reason being that there's so much hype about this particular field called data sciences and artificial intelligence that we have today. And my intention is to guide people in the right direction so that you get to have a fulfilling career in the near future. So on that note, what I would request is if those of you who can come on video, who are comfortable coming on video, I would request you to come on video so that we could have an interactive session. And I'm a very visual person. I'm somebody who speaks to larger group of audiences face to face. Thanks to COVID, I think we have to stick to the online platform, and which helps us connect across the world. But then again, I love seeing your beautiful faces on a morning. So it would be great if you could come on video as well. So apart from that, I just want a quick check of the audience that we have here. So what you could do is you could interact with me over the chat, and if you want to ask some questions, you could put it over the chat. Now, before I start, I just want to make sure that we set this on the right tone. So maybe just tell me in one word or a phrase as to what exactly is it that you do. Whether you are a student, if you're a student, what student are you in? What are you studying? Which course are you studying? Or if you are a professional, if you're a lecturer, what kind of course are you part of? So if you could just put on the chat as to what are you doing right now? Are you a student? Are you a lecturer? So that I can gauge what kind should I go in this session. That would help me a lot. So while I speak, you could just type in the chat box on the Google Meet as to whether you're a student or a lecturer here. And if you're a student, if you're a 12th standard or you're an undergrad or a PG student. Great. So I see things called students, a lecturer. Steve is a lecturer, assistant BCA, BCom students. Lovely. So from what I'm understanding, I think about 70% of the chat so far is all BCA students and MCom students, and a couple of you professors and assistant professors and lecturers. Wonderful. Well, this is a great mix of crowd here. So I was originally planning to touch upon the basics of the field called data analytics. How can one start thinking about data analytics? What are the things that you should study to get into this field? What does the future look like? And what are the opportunities that one has if one gets into this field? Now, I was actually told some of you might be comfortable with Malayalam, or most of you would be fine with English. Just to tell you a little bit of background, although Blessimus did speak about me, I've been somebody who's been traveling the country when I was from the age of 1. So I've not stayed in Kerala much. പക്ഷെ എനിക്ക് അറിയാവുന്ന മലയാളത്തിൽ ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കാം, അത് കുഴപ്പമുണ്ടാവില്ല. പക്ഷെ നിങ്ങൾ ഡേറ്റിന്റെ മലയാളം എന്താന്നൊക്കെ ചോദിച്ചാൽ ചിലപ്പോൾ കഷ്ടപ്പെടും. So what I would want to know is, are you comfortable with me speaking in English, or ഞാൻ മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കണമെങ്കിൽ അതും പറയാം. So you can again type on the chat what language are you comfortable with. If there's somebody who cannot, okay, somebody said mix പറഞ്ഞോ. So okay, എനിക്ക് കുറച്ച് മിക്സ് ഒക്കെ ചെയ്യാം, അത് കുഴപ്പമില്ല. But I think most of you are comfortable with English, and I am also comfortable with English, so that's great. But if there is anything that you want me to explain to you in Malayalam, please feel free to do that, and I would try my best to translate it into Malayalam as much as possible. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and if one of you could help me, tell me that whether the screen is visible or not. If Blessimus or Gitu, can you confirm if you can see the screen? Sorry, I'm not looking at the chat. Okay, great. We can see this. Perfect. So here we go. I'm going to talk about data sciences, and quite naughtily, I say data science is a field where you can predict the future. This is more like a scientific way of knowing what can happen in the future. Now, you might think this is astrology, or whether can I predict whatever is happening in my life? എന്തായിരിക്കും എൻ്റെ ഭാവി, എനിക്ക് എന്ത് ജോലിയായിരിക്കും കിട്ടാൻ പോണേ, എനിക്ക് ആരായിരിക്കും എന്നെ കല്യാണം കഴിക്കാൻ പോണേ, എന്ത് ആയിരിക്കും ലോകത്തിന്റെ ഒരു ഭാവി. Can you predict all of this? Yes, you can predict all of this, but provided the first term that I'm mentioning here is data. If you have the data for all of this in future. How many of you have heard of the Harvard Business School? So the Harvard Business School is one of the biggest, the best rated business schools in the world. It's among the top 5 business schools in the world. So Harvard Business School has a website called the Harvard Business Review, which talks about what are the trends, how do you get into those fields. So this was an article that came in the Harvard Business School on October 2012, the sexiest job of the 21st century, which goes on to say that there's a lot of demand in this particular field. Starting kid, where people have been starting to invest in data, what can we do with the data that we have? നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും എസ്പെഷ്യലി മലയാളീസ് ഐ ടി ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി നമ്മുടെ കുറെ ആൾക്കാർ എഞ്ചിനീയേഴ്സ് ആണ്. ഇപ്പൊ ഒരു കല്ലെറിഞ്ഞ മിക്കവാറും അതൊരു എഞ്ചിനീയറിനെ ആയിരിക്കും പോയി ചാടുന്നത്. സോ ഐ തിങ്ക് we have no dearth of engineers in our country. Everybody from the start of this millennium, from 2000 onwards, there has been a rise in jobs for IT jobs, right? So from the start of IT jobs, we've been trying to capture all these data. എന്ത് ഓൺലൈൻ ചെയ്താലും നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ഓൺലൈൻ ഇട്ടാലും അത് എങ്ങാണ്ട് പോയി ഇരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഗൂഗിൾ ചെയ്യുകയാണെങ്കിൽ എന്തൊക്കെ ഗൂഗിൾ ചെയ്തു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എങ്ങാണ്ട് പോയി ഇരിക്കുകയാണ്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഫേസ്ബുക്കിൽ ഇടുന്നതും ട്വിറ്ററിൽ ഇടുന്നതും ഇൻസ്റ്റഗ്രാമിൽ ഇടുന്നതും ഇതെല്ലാം ഒരു സ്റ്റോറേജിൽ പോയി ഇരിക്കുകയാണ്. So there is so much data that's getting accumulated. Now people started wondering, what do we do with this data that's getting accumulated? What is the point of storing all this data? And that's when they thought of, hey, maybe we should do something out of this data where we can use this data and analyze what's been happening and use that to predict the future. But having said that, there's a lot of controversies also happening around this, and I'll touch upon this in my next few slides. How do we really understand what is the kind of job that we do? Now, for instance, I am assuming all of you use some social media platforms like WhatsApp, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ Facebook, Instagram. ഇപ്പൊ ഇതിലൊന്നും ഇല്ലാത്ത ആരും തന്നെ ഇല്ല. നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ ദിവസം തുറക്കണേ വാട്സാപ്പ്, കണ്ണ് തുറക്കുമ്പോൾ ആദ്യം തന്നെ വാട്സാപ്പിലായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ ഏറ്റവും പോകണല്ലേ. So there's so much information being communicated through WhatsApp. Every day we wake up and have all these messages. Now, for those of you who use WhatsApp, നിങ്ങൾ ശ്രദ്ധിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്ന് അറിയില്ല. Suppose you are having a conversation with a friend of yours. Say you wake up, let's just pick for the sake of an example, a boy wakes up in the morning and he's just traversing through whatever is there on the online and Facebook and all that, and he suddenly thinks, okay, this guy is a sports enthusiast and he wants to buy a pair of sports shoes. So he thinks, okay, what kind of sports shoes do I buy? So he takes out his WhatsApp and starts messaging his friend, asking him, okay, hey, listen, John, I want to buy a sports shoe. What sports shoe do you recommend? And he would be like, hey, why don't you look for a brand like Nike or Adidas? And there's something called as, if you're interested in Nike, there's something called as Air Jordan, which is one of the best brands that the shoe has. Maybe you should try these shoes out. So he asks, okay, what is the price of these shoes? Have you bought these shoes? What is your experience and all that? So they have this conversation around a particular brand called Nike or a particular. Now, if you notice, this boy, in a day or two, he will start Facebook left or right ads. So this boy will start seeing some advertisements on his Facebook or Instagram about shoes in 1 or 2 days. Now, what's really happening there is, you might wonder, okay, are people trying to read my data here? What am I searching on Google, or what am I texting on WhatsApp? Are people trying to do that? So to be honest, nobody's sitting there behind some computer there trying to read up everything that you are putting up on WhatsApp, because all these are encrypted. But having said that, the very reason a company like Facebook bought WhatsApp is the access to the data that they have. And for instance, again, for another example, when you say you are traveling from one place to another, you are in Kerala and you want to travel to some other place, say Delhi. Well, now you cannot travel a lot and it's safe to stay at home. But before the COVID era, when we were at that phase, you want to travel and you look for Delhi to Kerala to Delhi, when you do that, you will start seeing ads on top of your search, which goes on to say, do you want to book a hotel? Or are you looking for flight travels? There are cheap offers that are happening. There is 50% offer on so and so Airbnb or Oyo rooms and all that. So you'll start seeing these ads on top of your Google search. Have you seen that? Yeah. So what really happens there is they understand what is the behavior of a certain customer and they try to bring out these ads depending on what the customer is trying to look for. So all the data that is we put on online is, and there's huge amount of data. And there is some algorithm that runs behind all of this. And they list out, okay, what are the preferences of this particular user that this particular user is trying to search for, and then they try to bring out results accordingly. Now, moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about the building blocks of data analytics. So before we start, let's look at what exactly is data. So maybe again on the chat, what guys do you think is data for you? What can you exactly classify as data? What are your thoughts that you can put on the chat? To be honest, everything that we see, we hear, we smell, all of this is some kind of information. Exactly. I think Maria is saying here it's a collection of information. Human body is actually getting information every single moment. While I am speaking to you, you're hearing my voice, you're hearing out some information and you're trying to collect it. You're trying to understand this. You're trying to look at my slides. So then you have the touch of the laptop or computer. So all of this is going into your system and there is information being flown here, right? So in a way, human body is also collecting data. But how do you really use the data or use the information? For the information to be useful, okay, somebody's saying it's raw information. Now, for the information to be useful, you have to capture it somewhere, right? You have to make sure that the information that is there around you is captured either in a file, in a physical file, or on an Excel sheet, on a PowerPoint, or on a database if it's too huge. So all this information has to be captured somewhere. So any information that is captured in a particular medium, whether it is physical or it is on a computer virtual, is actually data. Now, it's up to you whether how you want to use the data, or if you want to analyze the data or not. But basically, data is something, an information that is being captured for a future reference, like somebody ideally mentioned here. So once you capture data, it is available for analysis. But there is this another term which we usually hear now, which is big data. Now, what exactly is big data? Any thoughts, anybody? So, big data is basically a lot of data. ഒരുപാട് data ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് big data obviously. Now, for instance, ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മളൊരു മൈക്രോസോഫ്റ്റ് എക്സൽ ഷീറ്റ് എടുക്കാം. എക്സൽ ഷീറ്റിൽ ഒരു ലൈൻ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലും അത് ഡേറ്റയാണ്, 10 ലൈൻ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലും അത് ഡേറ്റയാണ്, 100 ലൈൻ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലും ഡേറ്റയാണ്. എക്സൽ ഷീറ്റിൽ ആകെ എത്ര റോസ് ഉണ്ടെന്ന് എപ്പോഴെങ്കിലും ആരെങ്കിലും ശ്രദ്ധിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ? Do you know the number? It's close to 10 lakh rows. So a little above that. Now, if you have 10 lakh of rows, നമ്മൾ ഒരാളിരുന്ന് ഫുൾ എക്സൽ ഷീറ്റ് ഒന്നൊന്നായിട്ട് നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ എന്താണ് എക്സൽ ഷീറ്റിൽ ഇരിക്കണമെന്ന് നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഇപ്പൊ ബേസിക്കലി ഇപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾ തന്നെ ഒരു ഗൂഗിൾ ഫോം നിറച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവും ഈ ഒരു സെഷൻ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട്, which goes and sits in an Excel sheet. Now you are about 200 people. Okay, even if you're like 200 people, if there are like 5 people looking at this Excel sheet, you can still figure out. But imagine you have about 10 lakh people joining a session and all of their information is being captured in an Excel sheet. How huge is that going to be? And how many people do you need to go through all those rows and columns and all that information, right? That's where data analytics comes into picture. Now, I'm telling you, Excel sheet has 10 lakh rows, but 10 lakh rows is very less. If most of you are computer science students, so tell me how much is 1,000 bytes? How much is 1,000 bytes? You can type on the chat. How much is 1,000 bytes? How many kilobytes is 1,000 bytes? One kilobyte is 1,000 byte, right? The kilo is standing for 1,000. Now 1,000 kilobytes is what? 1 megabyte. 1,000 megabytes is what? 1 gigabyte. And 1,000 gigabytes. So, for instance, just to give you understanding, ഒരു 500 to 700 MBs അല്ലെങ്കിൽ close to 1 GB ആയിരിക്കും, depending on the quality of the movie that you download, അല്ലേ? So ഒരു സിനിമേന്റെ സൈസ് തന്നെ മിക്കവാറും 1 GB അടുത്തായിരിക്കും. Imagine 1,000 movies like that. So that's about 1,000 GBs. Where do you really store that kind of data? That's when I say even an Excel sheet is too less for a space to actually capture what is big data. For that, you need systems, which is, I'm sure you would have heard of the terms like cloud, database. So the huge amount of information of data, which is thousands of MBs, thousands of GBs, it is being stored in a server, and people access these data and start analyzing it. Now, the problem comes when there is a break in privacy. ഒരു 2-3 കൊല്ലങ്ങൾക്ക് മുമ്പ് നിങ്ങൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടാവും ഒരു സ്കാം നടന്നത്, ഫേസ്ബുക്ക് സ്കാം. I think a little bit older than that, when this happened in London, that people got access to some data that the Facebook is using, or Facebook shared the data with a third party. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അങ്ങനെ കുറെ പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ കേൾക്കാറുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പൊ സൂമിൽ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഇങ്ങനെ കേൾക്കാറുണ്ട്, ഓക്കെ സൂം ആക്സസ് ചെയ്താൽ നമ്മുടെ ഡേറ്റയ്ക്ക് സെക്യൂരിറ്റി ഇല്ല എന്നൊക്കെ. Okay, I think some folks want me to speak in English. All right, great. So you must have heard that there's been all these controversies about data, that people are worried there is no privacy for the data. Are people reading my messages? Are people getting access to my online systems and all that? But there is a lot of security put in place. To be honest, the company that I work for, we work with the Fortune 140, which is the Fortune 140 top 140 companies of the Fortune 500. And a lot of money is being invested in making sure the data is secure. So the companies that I work with, we do not have access to pull their data and store it in our systems. What really happens is we work on something called as a remote system. So ideally, we are working on a client computer from our computer. So we get access through internet, and we can only access the client computer or the client servers where D drive or my D drive. So all of this analysis is done on the client's or the customer's computer. It's only when you pull that data and breach, or when there is a controversy behind all these data scams that's happening. So that's something that we need to be really careful about. And to be honest, if you really are careful with your passwords, with the way you are using your information, online information, if you don't really make it accessible for the public, the data is kind of safe. There are enough structures, and the cyber security is pretty strong right now for us to make sure that your data is safe. So unless you are careless, the data that you have will not be accessible to the public. Right? Now, moving on, let me talk about what exactly is analytics. I think somebody mentioned here that once data is captured, you use that data to take out something useful out of it, or try to understand some findings in the future. Now, that process of finding or making use of that data to predict something in the future, or to understand what has something in the past, is all analytics about, right? Now, for instance, every day now in the newspaper, the first headline that you see is So many patients are admitted. There are so many new cases. There are so many mortalities that is happening. And what do you really do with that? You understand, okay, is there a lockdown that's supposed to happen? Or how should the hospitals take care of their beds, their medical facilities, if something has to be done in advance to make sure so many people are being taken care of? So you kind of understand with the data that is already there as to how can I use that to make something or to prepare for something that's there in the future. That process of getting insights or getting findings from your data is analytics. And business uses this a lot. In today's business, you use your past data to understand a lot of things to plan your future. For example, ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മളൊരു പുതിയ ഫോൺ ഇറക്കാണ്, say for the sake of discussion, let's say the company called Apple is releasing a new phone, say, which is like an iPhone 15 or X5, which would be releasing the market in a year's time. And they want to understand what kind of people are going to buy this phone. So they would use the previous data of their iPhone sales and see, okay, what are the features that people like? And they say, okay, the camera is something that the people like, and they want high quality camera. And people want long battery life. And people want high tech. Slimmer, and it has to be less thick and less heavy. So they understand what is the customer preference from the past, and they analyze that. And when they are trying to, which we said, for example, is iPhone 15, they consider all of these factors. And when the next team starts building the next phone, they start looking at these factors, the data that they have. They analyze, okay, these are the preferences that they have. And the new phone that comes into the market will have all these features. So that's what analytics is all about. They use the past data, analyze it, and try to understand what the future can look like. So I'll give you more examples as to how can we use data analytics in the future. Moving ahead, now let me talk about what exactly does it involve. I'm going to break down the entire field of data analytics for you in the next few slides. And feel free to type your questions if you have on the chat box. If there are questions coming on the YouTube comment section, I'll need one of the lecturers, maybe Gitu's help, to tell me what are the questions coming up. And don't worry, I have a 5 to 10 minutes towards the end of the session for your questions. So, but if there is one question that you really want to ask and you cannot hold on to it, feel free to type your questions in the chat box. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 D's, the letter D. The first D is data engineering. If you know, what are the top 3 industries that we have today? Which are the most demanding industries that we have today? The first industry is weapons, which has the largest amount of market share, right? Another industry which is highly in the market, especially right now, is the pharma industry. All the medicines and all of these medications and formularies and pharmaceuticals companies that they have, they especially right now with COVID, you have a lot of research going into the vaccine that's coming out. So the second largest industry is like the pharma industry, and the third largest industry is the oil and gas, where all these petrol and diesel and all these things. So there's a lot of money being invested in all these 3 industries. Now they say data is the new oil. A lot of investments are going into the data industry. The reason being that people understand that there is a lot of future and a lot of opportunities in the field of data analytics and data engineering. So a lot of people, a lot of companies and businesses have started to invest in data. Now, this is something, like I said, the first from 2000 to say 2010, there was a lot of IT boom. A lot of people were in the IT industry trying to build softwares and trying to make exciting applications. Now, later, when they started building these applications, they understood that there's a lot of data being stored in their servers. So towards the end of last decade, say from about 2005, it started rising, and the start of this decade, 2011, 2012, 2013, there was a lot of investments being done on data. So people started understanding, okay, data is important, and they started storing this data. So to consider the example of oil, if data is oil, you need the right piping mechanism and the right infrastructure for that oil to pass from the oil rig to where the oil is filtered, where the oil is being pumped into the petrol pumps, and the petrol pumps use it to fill it into their vehicles. So all that piping mechanism and all the structures that you build to get the oil from the source to the point of consumption is actually data engineering. So data is being stored. Now, when data is being stored, it's either raw data, like somebody was saying, it's all just put together in one sheet without any structure. But if it's like proper columns, if you have the right order of columns and there is some structure to this, it's easier to understand and consume that data. So that's where the data engineering field comes into picture. So what people really do is the data engineers it's actually a job, data engineers, data architects. So what people do is they build systems, they build databases, they build cloud systems, which basically captures data and it is structured from a very unstructured raw data, which is just a combination of lot of information put in one file. It is structured into neat and clean columns. And this is huge, right? This is GBs and TBs of data. It's almost crores and billions of rows of data. So all of this has to be put together in one place. And you have huge systems, huge buildings, huge network, and huge databases to store this kind of data. So that's the first segment of there's no data, you cannot do analytics. So data is the raw material for analytics for this field. So a lot of opportunities and a lot of scope is being there for data engineering. And people are starting to recognize this, especially in Indian market. It's only starting to pick up right now. People are understanding, okay, there is importance in investing in storing the data. If you are on Google Drive or iCloud, you can see that a lot of people are wanting to spend money to use to store some of their data, their photos and all that. So a lot of money is being invested in data engineering to build that system to capture data. Now the next field is data science. If data now store the data is already there. What do you do with that data? Which is what we were talking about. You use that data to analyze a problem. Now, for instance, to give you an example, let's pick a company like, or say, a company like Facebook, which wants to, I was talking about advertisements. Now, they want to show these advertisements to the right people. I was giving you the example of sports shoe. Now, you're a sports shoe company like Nike. They want to show this ad too. So you have billions of users on Facebook, right? Of all these billion users, not everybody is going to be interested in a sports shoe. Maybe like 1% of people who could be interested in sports. Of that 1%, maybe about like 1% could be interested in shoes. So such things are there. So you see, the amount of people is a lot lesser compared to the huge number of people that are there. So Facebook would come to a data scientist and say, hey, please help me find out who are the customers or who are the users on Facebook who I should show this particular ad for Nike. So a Nike company would come to Facebook and say, who are the people I should show this ad for? So Facebook, as a data scientist in Facebook, what he will do, he'll look at the information that all as users have put on our Facebook profiles. Okay, I have interest in sports, I have interest in football, I follow these sports stars. So these people are likely to buy a sports shoe. So I would filter out all these people who have an interest in sports and who might be willing to buy a sports shoe. And I will say, hey, these are the people that you should show your ad to. So I filter this list out and give it to Facebook. Now that's a business problem. It's a marketing problem where I understand what kind of users will want to buy my product. So I, as a data scientist in Facebook, I would filter out all these users who are willing to buy the product and give it to the company and say, hey, listen, Nike, these are the people that will buy this product. So that's a data science problem. You use data, which is our user information, interest of the users, people and pages and groups that the people follow, and you use that data to predict, okay, these are the people who are likely to buy this sport shoe. So I will start showing these advertisements for the sport shoe to all these people. Now that's a data science problem. Um, So every industry has a lot of these problems. Where I'm just giving you a technology example so that you can relate to it. Now, if you are a supermarket or a retail store, your problem could be what kind of products should I keep on my shelf so that the customers are buying it. Or if you notice, when you go to the supermarket, always next to the billing counter, there are these chocolates kept. There are these very cheap items kept, which is easy to buy, which would take about 5 rupees or 10 rupees. Now, there is some data science done behind that. The idea being, you understand, okay, you when you are standing next to a store, a billing counter, you have to wait there anyway. So if you have kids with you, the kids might like a chocolate. They look at the chocolate that's kept next to a billing counter and they would prefer those things, right? So that's a data science problem. Now, the third one is decision science. A decision science problem is a combination of all of these data science problems. It can be blown up into a huge chunk of data science problem. So, for example, again, let's take a company ABC who comes to me and asks me, how can I increase my revenue? How can I increase my profit? Now, I would say you could have a larger customer base. You could have solve a lot of problems for them. Maybe you should hire a lot of employees. Maybe you should fire employees that are not doing well. So there are a lot of these for increasing the revenue of the company. But each of these problems are small data science problems. So a combination of all of these data science problem becomes a huge universe of problems, which is actually a decision science problem. So those are the three buckets that you have: data engineering, data science, and decision science. So these are the 3Ds or 3 segments of a data related industry. And all these three have huge amount of opportunity jobs in all these 3 industries, right? Now I'll speak more about how do you really get to each of these, or how can you start with each of these industries? What should you really study to get into these industries? Now, the first thing that you need to know is mathematics. From our school times, I think we have been learning math, and math is that one subject that we have in every single class. But what in maths, right? I'm sure some of you have heard of this term called statistics and probability, where you understand, okay, this is the entire amount of data that I have. What is the average of this entire data? For instance, if a paper വായിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ weather prediction is one field where data analytics is highly used. ഇന്ന് മഴ പെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നുണ്ടോ? നാളെ മഴ പെയ്യുമോ? What is the humidity for one entire week? What is the humidity for one entire month? What are the chances of rain on all these days? So there is a percentage of, okay, there is an 80% chance that it is going to rain today. There is a 50% humidity in the atmosphere this evening. So what are people doing is they understand what has happened in the past and try to analyze, okay, this is how today's weather is going to look like in the future, or in the next 7 days, this is how the weather is going to look like. So they use a little bit of statistics. They understand, okay, I'm just throwing some terms at you. You can Google this later. Something like mean, central tendency, variances. These are terminologies in statistics and probability. So you need to understand some of these concepts to understand or to solve problems in data science. So statistics and probability are 2 important or subjects that you need to learn to get into this field. The next thing is business. So you need to understand how business works. What are the different business models? And there are a lot of businesses, right? There's retail, there's airline, there's energy, there's technology, there's banking, there's finance. So all of these are various industries. And all of these industries have data science problem. So if you are in a particular industry, you should know the industry really well. So if you are in a banking industry, you should understand how the bank operates. How do they make money? How do they give money? How are the various ways that customers get involved in a bank? So you need to understand the basics or the nuances of that particular industry that you're working with. Now, a lot of people are marketing professionals, so you need to understand the marketing industry really well. Some people are in supply chain, so you need to understand supply chain really well. Some people are in operations, you need to understand operations. Finance, if you're in finance, you need to understand finance really well. So you need to understand the business that you are in really well to become really good at data analytics. So that's the second field that you should be good at. The third field is technology. Now, since I understand a lot of you are computer science undergraduates and graduates here on the call, and a lot of you are professors and assistant professors, associate professors from computer science field. So I don't have to tell you the importance of technology. In fact, Bill Gates goes on to say this, that for every field that you are in right now, you need to be a coder. To do any kind of job today in the technology industry or in business, you need to know a little bit of coding. So that's where the third is technology. You need to be familiar with some programming language, some coding language to start with. And once you have an idea of a coding language, you can learn other coding languages quite easily, because the structure and the flow is going to be a lot similar. It's just that the nuances or the specifics, the syntax is going to be different, right? So you need to understand or you need to know the basics of certain coding languages. Now, what are some of the coding languages that you can learn? Currently, what people use, and just write down these things and you can use it later. You can research later. Python is one. There's something called as R language. So you can learn these things online. It's there available on any of these websites, Coursera, EDX, Khan Academy, Data Camp. These are good websites to learn these things. Another program that people used to use is SAS. Another program that people use is SPSS. But these are kind of extinct right now. These were used almost 5-6 years ago. Then people use something called as Hadoop. People use something called as SQL or SQL to pull data. So these are some technologies that I'm sharing with you, just so that you can remember, okay, these are a few technologies that I can start learning with. Now, a lot of people ask me, is there really a huge amount to do these courses online? What I usually tell people who are interested in this field is, so to be honest, there is a surge for data analytics. So there are a lot of these courses that are priced very high for something very basic, right? If you have the right guidance to know what should you really search for, what are the courses that you should look up online, you can easily do these courses for free. A lot of material is available for free. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in this field, start doing some of these courses for free and understand if you have the interest in this course, and then start doing maybe a certification. So take about the next 4 to 6 months to do your own research for free online, register for free on all of these courses that's available online, make yourself aware of all of these courses, and then do a certification. I'm telling you a certification only because when you go for a job interview, they might ask. So the studies that I told you is statistics. I'm skipping business for now. So statistics, probability, programming languages like Python or R and SQL will definitely take you a long way. That's your start point. So just Google for these courses online and just start reading about all of these courses online and register for some course. That's your start point. The process of problem solving in data science. How do you really go about solving a problem in data science? Now, the first step is to identify the problem. For example, when I was talking about the Facebook coming to you, the Nike example, the sports shoe example, the problem, the customer will come to you, okay, this is my problem. So you need to sit with the customer and understand and define the problem for that customer and say, hey, okay, your problem is that you need to sell your shoes. And obviously, at the end of the day, it boils down to a revenue problem. ഏത് ബിസിനസ് നമ്മൾ തുടങ്ങിയാലും അവസാനം നമുക്ക് കാശാണ് ഉണ്ടാക്കേണ്ടത്. എത്ര പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ഉണ്ടാക്കി, എത്ര റവന്യൂ ഉണ്ടാക്കി. But every business has its own model, right? So you need to understand, okay, what is it that is the model of this business? So in this particular example of sports shoes, you need to make sure that you are selling the right sport shoe to the right customer who is a sport enthusiast. So that's the problem definition, which is to identify who are the people I need to show my sport shoe ad on a certain social media platform. So you define the problem. The next stage is you acquire or consume data that is there for that particular problem. About data evidna kittum. So since this is a Nike related problem and a Facebook problem, the data is internally available in Nike company and Facebook company. So they would have already put system in place. Remember I told you about database and cloud storage? They would have already done that for the past few years. So that company will give the data scientist this data and say, hey, this is my data. You take what portion that you want and start analyzing. So you need to pull that data. So that is called data acquisition. So for that, you need a tool like SQL to pull data. Or when you must have also heard, if you are familiar with big data platforms, there's something called as Hadoop. You can use Hadoop, or there is something called as Hive. But all of this is more or less similar to SQL. So you use these technologies to pull data and acquire data from the customer who's coming to you. In this particular case, it was Nike and Facebook, right? The third step is data cleaning. Now, I told you big data is huge. There are thousands of GBs of data or thousands of MBs of data. ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു എക്സൽ ഷീറ്റിൽ തന്നെ if there are 10 lakh rows, അത്തരം റോസ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അതിരുന്ന് ഫുൾ ആവശ്യം ഉണ്ടാവില്ല. ചിലപ്പോൾ അതിൽ നിന്ന് നമ്മൾ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ മാതിരി if there are like 1 billion people on Facebook, not everybody is interested in sports. So you would reduce the amount of data. You will look for people between the age group of you can be on Facebook only say about the age of 13 right now, right? It used to be 18 before. So adinu thaayulla aalkarade data avashyamilla. So now we will put a filter of people above say 13 years of age, and most often you see people above the age of 70 do not really play sports, or the maximum people who play sports is between the age group of, I'm not saying the older generation does not play sport, everybody does, but the huge percentage of people who play sports is between the age of say 15 to 35, right? So you might filter that data to that people who are interested in football, who are interested in cricket. So what you're trying to do there is you're trying to reduce the huge chunk of data that is there to a smaller chunk of data so that it's easier and relevant for you to analyze. Now that is data cleaning. You remove all the data that is not necessary for you, and then you reduce it to what is really necessary for this problem that you're trying to solve. That is data cleaning, and which is the third stage. The fourth stage is data analysis and probability and programs like R and Python to code and understand, okay, what is the mean of data? What is the variance of data? So you make certain hypotheses, which is you make assumption, okay, let's again take this example of a student who are between the age of 20 to 35 are most likely to buy my product. So maybe I should show this advertisement to those kind of people. That's analysis that you're doing in data analytics, right? So that process of using that data and making certain assumptions and trying to test it with the data that you have, that is the entire process of data analytics. And this is the heart of data science, right? How do you really come up with these solutions? Happens in this stage, which is the fourth stage, called data analysis. So you can use technologies like Python. The fifth one is you find insights and findings. For this, you need business knowledge. How is your business operating? If you are a banking business, you need to understand how the banking business operates. If you are a sports shoe company, you have to understand how your company operates. So only when you have a business understanding, you can connect a business model to data analysis that you did and bring out insights from that. So that's the fifth stage. And the final stage is most often you work with business partners. So they will not really understand, okay, what is statistics, what is probability, what is mean, median, mode. They will not understand these terminologies. So you have to maybe make a beautiful PowerPoint presentation, a business report to tell the business customer that, hey, your business is going to rise this way. These are the sales that you're going to have, or these are the people that you should target to market your product. So it has to be like a more visual kind of thing. It has to be a PowerPoint presentation or a graph or an infographic so that your business customer can understand your insights on your analysis. For that, it can be done on Python and R and all that. But there are specific tools. On Excel, you might have seen this option of chart. So you can make different charts for this, right? That's one option. But if it's huge data, people usually use tools like Power BI. They use tools like ClickView. They use tools like Tableau, which is basically drag and drop. So you just have to drag and drop all of these things. You can make graphs easily and understand how is the trend for all of these things. You can plot all these data points on a graph. So it's easier for you to look at, and the customer can also understand. So tools like Tableau, Power BI, ClickView can be used for making business reports. And obviously you can put all of this together in a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about various kinds of data science called descriptive. Now, what exactly is descriptive is, so you look at past data and understand what is happening in the past. For example, let's just take the COVID example. You understand, okay, so many people have been affected with COVID. So what is the reason for so many people being affected in COVID? Why is Mumbai locked down? So you understand, okay, there was a huge breakout there, and there's a lot of population there. So you're trying to understand why did something happen in the past. That is a descriptive kind of problem. An inquisitive kind of problem is you try to understand the reason as to why did that happen. So let's go back to this example of COVID in Mumbai. Why did that break out there? Who was the person who started the breakout there? Which are the areas that got most affected, and why did those areas get affected? Now, that kind of problem where you start asking questions like, why did that happen? What is the reason? Is an inquisitive kind of problem. Now, suppose with this past data, you want to understand, okay, what is going to be the daily in certain area, or how many beds do I need in my hospital to make sure that I meet the demand of all the patients that are coming in, which is something that you are trying to do it in the future, but you use the past data for this. So you're trying to predict something in the future with your past data. Now that is a predictive kind of a problem. And the fourth kind of problem is prescriptive. Now the prescriptive kind of problem is when you go ahead and tell the consumer or the customer that, hey, this is going to happen and you better be prepared with some infrastructure already in place. And these are the things, these are the steps that you need to take to be well equipped for the demand that you have. Now that is a prescriptive kind of problem. So DIPP, these are the four kind of problems: descriptive, inquisitive, predictive, and prescriptive. These are the four kind of problems that are usually solved in a data analytics world. Now, what are the opportunities involved? What are the different kinds of industries that you can work in? All of us know this booming industry called e-commerce, right? So eBay. So a lot of opportunities in that kind of industry. Then there is banking. So problems like when you go to get some loan from a bank, they do something called, they check your background, then they check your credit score. If you are a credit card user, have you paid your loans in the past? Are you a fraudster? So they check all these problems, and all these problems can be solved with data analytics. So banking is another field. Aerospace. So how do you optimize the cost? ഈ aeroplane പറക്കണതിന്റെ cost എങ്ങനെ കുറയ്ക്കാം? How do you reduce the cost of operation? What kind of customers can you reach out to for advertising your airlines? So aerospace problems are there. And there is retail problems, which we already spoke about. You go to a supermarket and you understand what are the high selling products. So data analytics is used there. Pharma industry is hugely using data sciences right now to understand. So to release a drug, it takes about 10 to 15 to 20 years, right? It's only right now in the COVID era where we desperately need a medicine vaccination where it's happening. All of this is happening in 1 year. But otherwise, it's a 15 to 20 year process. So you need to understand what are the diseases. Then you need to make a formulary for that. Then you need to test it, multiple versions of testing. And then you need to get approvals. And then you need to market it. And then you need to get a patent for that. So it's a very long process. So pharma industries use data analytics a huge way to understand their business and run their business. Then there are energy sectors. So petrochemical industries, there's a lot of scope in battery and electricity energies, where renewable sources of energies is hugely accepted right now. So if you've heard of this person called Elon Musk, he's making this company called Tesla, which has electric cars. So a lot of money is being invested into the electric automotive industry. So again, this industry has a lot of scope in data analytics. So all these are some examples, but pick any industry. Even education is using a lot of analytics. Sports, if you are somebody who watches football or cricket, you will see that while you are watching these things online, you will see, okay, what is the percentage of India winning this match? What is the percentage of the opponent winning this match? How much score is predicted? What is the score that this batsman will make? So all of these are analytics basically, right? They use past data and predict the future. So any field for that matter has data analytics right now. Any industry has data analytics, and there is huge amount of opportunities involved if you want to start your career in data analytics. So what are some of the companies that have data science jobs? Mu Sigma is the company that I work for. It's a pure data sciences job. So we work only on data science and decision science and data engineering problems. So our business is that. But there is a company like Google, which is online search business. Where does their revenue come from? Their revenue comes mostly from advertisements, right? But they're all venturing into a lot of other businesses. They are acquiring a lot of other businesses, like Uber is one business that they acquired. YouTube is another business that they acquired. The Meet that we have right now, where we're having this discussion, is another platform. But Google as a company is not an analytics company. There is a division in Google called Google Analytics. So a lot of data scientists apply jobs in data analytics field. And like I said, every industry has one division called the data science team right now, which is in-house in that company, which is trying to do a lot of data analytics problems. So that's an in-house data analytics opportunity. But there are companies like Mu Sigma, which does only data sciences problem, and they interact with customers like Google, customers like Apple, customers like Facebook or Walmart or Flipkart, and they work with each of these businesses to solve their data science problems. Some other pure data analytics companies are Accenture Analytics, Iker Analytics. These are available in India. Fractal. There's this company called Palantir. So these are a couple of companies, data analytics companies, that's available online. Now, obviously, this is what we really want to know. How much money will I make in this field, and what is the kind of salary I'll get if I'm part of this field, right? It's one question that we want to understand if we are getting into this field. Like I said, there is huge amount of demand right now for this particular field. If you look at the job, technology job opportunities that are there, 40 to 50% is around data sciences. And I come from a field where I have to work with a lot of people to hire a lot of these data sciences. And there's huge amount of opportunity, and it's just increasing. The amount of data that is being saved, the amount of data captured and analyzed is huge. So there is huge amount of job opportunities for sure, especially in country like India, where we are highly invested, a huge opportunities in data analytics. But to talk about salary, I think for a fresher who's just uh, passing out of college and has done the studies that I was talking about, math, business, and technology. If you are pretty familiar and if you have a good certification, maybe somewhere a starting salary would be somewhere around, say, it could be anywhere between 4 lakhs to 8 lakhs depending on the company that you're part of. Could be even higher in some cases, but on an average it's around 4 to 8 lakhs for a fresher's job. If you have like 2 to 3 years of experience, it could be anywhere about 8 to 16 lakhs, or even beyond that, depending on the profile that you have and the knowledge and the industry that you work in. So obviously, like you're seeing right now, if you have like a 10-year work experience, your salary could be anywhere between 50 lakhs to a crore. If you are doing the right things, if you have studied the right things and worked on the right problem and worked with the right customer, your salary could be very well between 50 lakhs to 1 crore. If you have like 10 to 12 to 15 years of work experience. So that's the kind of opportunities that this field has. This is just for your understanding. It depends person to person, but on average, these are the opportunities that is there. Now, what does the future hold? We really don't know what the future hold. Although the data analytics is so well versed, you can predict anything for that matter, right? From where the next terror attack is going to be, to what is the child that you're going to have. If you really hack the data, or if there is an alien invasion that's going to happen, or if there is extraterrestrial life, all these things can be predicted. But the only challenge is we don't have data for these things. So you really don't know what is the future looking like. But from the way it's going, from what I'm understanding and I'm researching about, things are going to disrupt the market. And there's a lot of artificial intelligence that's going to come into the market. So you already know a lot of these things. Like if you're using an Android phone, something called as Hey Google or Google Assistant is basically artificial intelligence or data analytics. An iPhone, the Siri voice app is a data analytics thing. If you are somebody who is following the car industry, in another less than 10 years, you're going to have, even right now as we speak, Tesla is doing this, a driverless car. Without a driver, there are cars going on. So this is artificial intelligence. You see a lot of investment going into robotics and automating a lot of these things. So the future is heavily invested in data analytics, and you will see man, machine, and processes coming together to solve problems of the future. So I will guarantee you this field is going to be a huge scope in the future. Now I'm just going to play a video where, in the interest of time, I'm going to play one such video, and I'll speak about this. So this is a technology which uses data analytics and is trying to solve a particular problem. Can you see the screen? I've opened a YouTube video. If one of you can unmute
Yes,
your.
we can see.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just going to play this. You can watch this video and I'll talk about it.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store, so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it just walk out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
I'm going to play one more video which talks about the future of technology